Well, hey there, everyone. I'm Esther Bartkiw. Today, I want to talk to you about how to get a healthy dopamine hit. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. For those of you who are returning, happy to see you again. Please subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button, and as soon as I publish a new video, you will be the first to be notified of it. My name is Esther Bartkiw. I am a core belief therapist. I'm an intuitive and energy reader. I'm a super fan and student of astrology. I combine core belief therapy with psychological tips, tools, and techniques, energy healing, spirit-filled messages to offer to my clients really grounded, practical, spiritual guidance, but also very deep inner change processing so that you can create what you want to create in your life. All right, so how to get healthy dopamine hits. How did this video come to be? Recently, I was doing a private session with a lovely young lady. She presented to me and she said, listen, there's this behavior, this pattern that's happening in my life, and I don't like it because even though it works, it's getting me the wrong attention, it's the wrong vibration, there's a lot of negativity with it, it's stressing myself out, I need to change it. So first of all, great that she recognized this and she was willing to reach out to get some help. So in the session, I'm working with her, we're connecting with the part inside of her, the energy inside of her that is responsible for this patterning. We're waking it up, it's understanding what it's doing, it's shifting, it's changing, we're finding beliefs, we're doing a little bit of a soul journey within. We get right to the end of the session. And this part, the energy within, is ready to change, the change from within, it's ready to happen. And I said to her consciously, are you willing to give up this pattern? Because it's been part of her life for about 10 years. And she said, I'm going to be really honest with you. It gives me a dopamine hit. And she says, I see we're on the cusp of a big change here. And I'm kind of like, whoa, how else am I going to get a dopamine hit? So, wow, she was being so open and honest. And this is a perfect example of when you're doing your inner work that there are layers. And see how right at the end of the session, she acknowledged this is about to shift, but something came up and we've got to address it. So we're going to regroup in a couple of weeks and we're going to work on this dopamine hit. What's connected there? Is it, why this way? What was the pull to get this dopamine hit? What was the pull of this patterning? Was it that she doesn't feel worthy enough? She doesn't appreciate herself enough. She loves the attention. I don't know. We're going to work on that. But in the meantime, I gave her homework and I said, okay, this is shifting. And she acknowledges that. So we're going to keep nurturing that in between sessions, while she's also contemplating consciously what else can she do to get that dopamine hit. And we're going to regroup in a couple of weeks and we're going to take the next step. This is why I offer my sessions in a 3-session package, because we need to be able to sift through the layers. All right. So I loved it because I came away from the session and saying, oh my gosh, we all search for dopamine hits and we tend to do it in very unhealthy ways. I know I did. Okay. And it would be really great to understand this and find some new ways to get dopamine hits while you're doing the inner work, right? Both simultaneously. So first of all, okay, what is dopamine? Dopamine is the feel-good neurotransmitter. It's a chemical that sends information between the neurons in your brain. It's connected with your reward system. Right? So when the brain releases dopamine, you feel good, you feel pleasure, you feel satisfied. It's like, we want it. Okay. So dopamine's great. Now you might be thinking, well, Esther, are dopamine and serotonin the same? Because I was thinking the same thing. So I checked it out, and dopamine and serotonin, they're all they're both neurotransmitters. They're both connected and affect the nervous system. Remember, I've mentioned I'm doing a lot of study on the nervous system right now, but they do have slightly different processes within you. Today we're focusing on dopamine, right? Triggering the pleasure center, that satisfaction, that feel good within inside of you. Now, often when people are, you're having a moment and you want to feel good in the moment. A lot of people, myself included, will reach for something that in the moment is really great. But when it becomes a habit and a patterning and maybe even an addiction, it becomes counterproductive. Okay? It can affect your health, your mentality, your relationships, your career, your life. And this is when we need to be careful of this. When we're reaching for dopamine hits that are no longer productive, but they're actually causing more problems than that moment of woo. All right. So for example, let's say you get your dopamine hit from eating sweets. Nothing wrong with having a chocolate and saying, oh, I feel really good, and moving on if you can do that. But if that chocolate leads to the whole box of chocolates, leads to a trip to the grocery store to get more chocolate and chips and cakes and cookies and whatever it is that you want, and you end up with a big binge, and this happens once a week, once every 2 weeks, 3 times a week, and now it is affecting your health, your body, your mentality. You wake up in the morning after a binge with all these wrappers all around yourself, and then you start beating yourself up, and you're so stupid, and why did you do that, and nothing's ever going to change, and whatever the words are that you say to yourself. Then that reaching for a chocolate, for a dopamine hit, is not the best practice for you. It might work beautifully for someone else who can say, ooh, Ferrero Rocher, right? Unpeel the gold wrap, pop it in their mouth, and move on. Now, that was never me. I couldn't do that, right? For me, one chocolate is not enough, and it's too many, because it led down a very slippery slope. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. And, other ways that people seek dopamine hits, often carbs, like a carb hit, right? Sweets in particular. It could be any food, drink, right? Any drink, caffeine, sex, right? And outlandish behavior to get attention. Being provocative, whether it's with photos, you might see that on social media, or words, or provocative with your opinion or statements. I remember once going to school with someone who always said the most crazy, outlandish statements. And one day I asked them and I said, do you really believe that? And they're like, no. And I said, why do you say it? Because I like the reaction, right? There's a rush, right? There's a rush. They're getting a rush. Drugs, gambling, any of the addictions, shopping. I know so many people who get their dopamine hits from shopping. Again, nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with saying, I've had a really bad day, I'm going to go buy a lipstick. Nothing wrong with saying, I've had a really tough week, I'm going to go to the store and buy a new sweater, a new pair of shoes, new purse, whatever it might be. But when you're shopping all the time, I work with shopping addicts. Every day they got to buy something new. It's their hit. Or maybe it's a once a month shopping addiction, but they have credit cards that credit card bills that they put away. They're not able to pay their credit card bills. They're hiding it from their spouse. They don't have enough money to pay their rent. It's just about shopping. I'm reminded of this story. I'm a storyteller. When I was still living in Burlington, Ontario, and I had a friend, and she called me one day and she said, do you like Joan Rivers jewelry from the shopping channel. I'm like, oh my God, I love all of her stuff. And she said to me, there's a lady who is selling Joan Rivers jewelry that she bought from the shopping channel, and everything's going to be $5. And you want to come with me and we'll see if we can get any great deals. I came, I brought my mother because my mother, you know, was a big Joan Rivers fan, Ivanka, all the jewelry. And what we found out with the story was there was a lady who lived in this home and she was a shopping addict. And she died and her daughter came to the home and found the apartment full of open and unopened shopping channel boxes. And so the daughter just opened everything and just said, I'm going to do a $5 sale. You take whatever you want. And she was trying to process that this is how her mother was living. Okay. So that lady was getting a high, right? You call you call or you do it online and you, yes, add to cart and press send and, oh, my package is coming. Now the doorbell rings and the package comes. Those are all dopamine hits. Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Interesting. Some of those boxes weren't even open. All right. So yeah, like even like if you use a caffeine for a dopamine hit, nothing wrong with it until you have 10 cups a day and it's giving you heart palpitations and it's got your nerves on edge and it's causing adrenal stress, right? Nothing wrong with using sex as a dopamine hit. But if you're having sex with someone who doesn't care for you, doesn't love you, is using you, if after the sex act you're feeling used and unworthy, I mean, right? There's that tipping point. I want you to always be mindful of it. So one day you wake up, ding, 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 and you have this realization that, whoa, this behavior, this pattern is giving me a dopamine hit, but now it's actually causing more problems than that moment of pleasure that I get, right? Because usually the pleasure will last minutes, maybe an hour, the thrill before you're seeking the next one. All right. So you realize, okay, this is not working anymore. So what do? Well, the first step is, well, hey there, friend, I'm back. I was just about to tell you how you can get healthy dopamine hits. And then someone started vacuuming just outside my door, so I had to take a little bit of a break. But you know, there are a number of ways that you can get really healthy dopamine hits, all right? Call your favorite friend and have a conversation. I know this works for me all of the time. I have a friend, Kelly, and when Kelly and I either talk on the phone or back when I was living in Burlington, when she was living in Burlington, we would meet at Starbucks, the one on Fairview Street at the chapters there. We could have been there for 2-3 hours. And we always say when we leave that conversation, it's like, oh, like we're flying, we're high, we're full of vibration. We got this dopamine hit and we're just like, we're raring to go. It's like, oh, I can do anything. And even when we would have, now we're having like WhatsApp chats or Telegram chats, we always get this dopamine hit. I know I do, and I know she does because she tells me that she gets them. So call your favorite friend. That's a great way to get a dopamine hit. Sit down and watch your favorite show. So again, you know, if you're watching your shows 10 hours a day, every day of the week, that might slip into, right, addictive behavior, something that's not supporting you in your everyday life. But if you just need a break and you need a little hit to do some laughing and enjoy some intrigue and suspense, and you make a ritual of, I sit on the couch, I put my favorite blanket around me, I make myself something nice to drink, I have a little snack, I watch my show, ooh, I feel so good. Do it. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Just watch for your tipping point. Get out into nature. Nature loves you. Nature loves you. You'll always get a dopamine hit of being out in nature. Go for a walk. Dance party. You know, I've talked about dance parties before. I love dance parties. Dance in your kitchen. That'll give you a dopamine hit. listen to music, right? Again, be mindful of what kind of music that you're listening to. What is it that's raising your vibration, helping you to feel good, right? If you're listening to a song and all of a sudden it's bringing up memories of a past love or a bad situation, that's not the song for you right now. You want the song that's really going to get you going, okay? For me, it's 80s, early 90s. Healthy sex. Have great sex with your partner, with your friends with benefit, but someone who loves you and cares for you and you know, they're nurturing to you, you know, self-sex. Go ahead, pleasure yourself, get that dopamine hit. Exercise, you know, a lot of people use exercise to get a dopamine hit, and again, that's great, but there is a difference between fun exercise and I'm going to the gym and I got my blinders on and I got to do this rep and I got to do this and I got to write it down. Believe me, I've been there. I've done it. So if you're thinking, I want to use exercise just to get a dopamine hit, do something different. If you go to the gym, go wall climbing, go swimming, go jump up and down on a trampoline, go bowling, right? Go play mini golf, do something different, something that's going to be fun, that's going to give you this little hit, maybe an adrenaline rush, right? There's all kinds of ways you do this. I come from Southern Ontario. As in most places, we have lots of county fairs and carnivals and things like that. I always found for me, those are great dopamine hits, going on rides, going on the Ferris wheel, walking around, you know, smelling the cotton candy. I get huge dopamine hits from that. All right. CBD oil, if you can get it in your area, is great for a dopamine hit. Change your routine is very, very good. Do something new. And hugs. Hugs are so good for so many things, especially when you're with someone who gives great hugs, meaningful hugs, doesn't pull away. I'm a hugger. I love hugs. I hug everybody. Hug your pet. Hug your loved one. You know, I meet strangers on the street, have this 2-minute conversation with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And I hug them. That's just me. Hugs are really good. They're such a dopamine hit. Okay. And you can even hug yourself. I know people are probably rolling their eyes and saying it's not the same, but in the moment it does work. Self hugs are really great. So hugs. So, you know, these are some ideas. And then, of course, always just do something you love. When you're doing something you love, you raise your vibration. And part of that is you get a dopamine hit. So one of the things I love, what gives me a huge dopamine hit, is going on excursions. So you may or may not know, but back in my history, I was a tour guide. I used to take people on excursions. Sometimes it was very stressful when you're the tour guide and organizing it, but I always loved, you know, giving people new information and taking them somewhere new and sharing an adventure with them and the interaction. I mean, those loves of mine infiltrate into every area of my life. So I was a tour guide, and then when I go on holiday, I love to go on excursion. I love to go on excursion when I'm doing my retreats. I love taking my guests, the people joining me on retreat, on excursion, showing them something new. And then as I live my nomadic life, excursions are just a part of my life. It's usually, that's my day off. It's like, oh, I want to go see this. I want to do that. I want to do an excursion, whether it's on a boat or on a bus or just a couple of people in a car. I just love it. Totally turns me on. My pleasure centers, woo, woo. I come home at the end of the day and I'm tired, but I'm just like, oh, this is so good. And it's such great manifesting energy. And I always try to shoot off some rocket of wish, because that's great energy to manifest in. So, we're in the time of Rona. The last excursion I did, I guess you could call when I went paragliding. I was here in Budva last fall in September. That was everything. That was dopamine. That was adrenaline. It was amazing. And then before that, there was a couple of excursions that were running here in Budva, and I did one of the Boca tours, which I had done before, but I just love it. You're on a boat. I think there was about maybe 50 of us, and they do a fish fry, and there's people are having cocktails and there's music and there's dancing, and they, drop us off at different places for an hour, and you can go into the village and look to see what's going on. And I love, you meet such interesting people. I just love every bit of it. You can dive off the boat, right? At some point the boat anchors in the middle of the water and you go swimming, and I just love it. So right now that is not available to me. So I find excursions in my own neighborhood, and you can do the same. Because I can honestly say, no matter where I have lived, and I've lived in a lot of places in this lifetime, I've never really poked around the whole city, town, village. And Budva's not a big place, and I've been poking around many places, but there's still sections of it I have not investigated. So in an earlier video, I think it was God Show Me Something Beautiful, I woke up one day and I had this thought, oh, wow, you haven't gone and checked out the monastery yet. So I found out where it was. It was a 2-kilometer walk there, and I walked there and I went through different neighborhoods and different streets, and everything's closed here right now at the time that I'm making this video. We've been closed for 5 weeks now. But I made note of it. Oh, I want to come back here and I want to come back there. And isn't this interesting? And I never noticed that. I got to the monastery, and, the chapel was open, and there was a priest doing a service within, and I walked around, I poked around, and I came back home, and I was like, whoa, I loved it. It was like, it gave me that dopamine hit, that rush, adventure, adrenaline, dopamine. It's hit my pleasure centers, right? Ding, ding, ding. In that video, I also talked about how one day I discovered that you can walk along the top of the walls in Old Town Budva, and I didn't know, and I was like, oh, how did I not know this? And I found my way up there, and it wasn't a long walk. It was probably 20 minutes because I stopped to take photos along the way, but it hit that pleasure center for me. So if you're, watching this and you're thinking, well, I can't go on an excursion right now, Esther, because wherever you are, do some poking around in your neighborhood, in your town, in your village. Go, somewhere that you haven't been before, and just check it out, see what's there. Okay, that's my go-to dopamine hit. What can I do different today, different from routine, like an excursion. So lots of suggestions for you here, and it's time for you to swap things out. So what do I want you to do if you're waking up and realizing, wait a minute, I get my dopamine hits, it works, but it's actually destructive for me? What I should say is not, well, I want you to do it, but I'm going to suggest for you to do it, is do the inner work, right? You need to connect with that part of you inside that's driving, right? Driving whatever you're reaching for that's no longer working. There needs to be an inner transformation. But also begin to take the steps to start switching it up. That's your conscious responsibility. That's your conscious action. And I will say to you, let's say one day you feel like, oh, I need this hit, and I'm about to go eat a lot of sweets, or I'm about to drink a lot of wine, or I'm about to go spend money, and I don't want to do that because I'm realizing that that's not working for me. So I'm going to, choose one of these activities, and you go and you do it. And you come back home and you're like, okay, that was really good. But then a few minutes later, you fall into that, whatever that sabotaging behavior is, that addictive behavior is. Don't beat yourself up about it, right? And please don't come to this conclusion of going for a walk didn't work. Instead, bring to mind, going for a walk worked because I felt great when I came home. But there's still a little bit more work to do within to align. All right? And, if you need help, reach out to me. We can do some sessions. We can find out what's going on. We can make some really great positive change for you, so that when you're going and you're calling your favorite friend, or you're watching your show, or you're hugging, or you're going on an excursion, or doing something that you love, that it ends up by being enough. You don't have to reach for something more. All right. So I hope those suggestions are helpful to you. I want to leave this on a note of, I checked to see about studies, and I found a study by the Recovery Research Institute, which is a addiction counseling institute. And what they found was after 1 month of swapping out one dopamine strategy for another, your brain is already showing signs of change. Okay, there's no new neural networks, new connections that are happening just after 1 month. Okay, and after 14 months, the brain has returned close to normal function when it comes to the dopamine transportation and the reward center. So don't get dismayed by it's going to take me up to 14 months to flip this around. It doesn't have to. Be encouraged that by 1 month, the brain is already starting to make changes, and you're going to build on a momentum. Plus, as you're doing the inner work and creating that inner support, I really believe, and I understand to be true from doing this for a long time, it's going to speed up. It's going to speed things up. All right. So beauties, that's it for now. Yes, I'm still working on the nervous system program. It's going to take a little bit longer because there's more I want to delve into there. I'm going to put together the Vibe Up for Money program. We're going to do that. But before we get there, the next video I'm going to do for you, this is a little bit of a sneak preview. I sat down and I had a really deep conversation with my higher self. And I asked it a lot of personal questions. I think we conversed for about 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. But there were a few topics I asked about. I asked about New Earth. I asked about travel vaccines. And I asked about law of attraction. These were a little bit more general. They were still very specific to me, but a little bit more general. And I thought you might be interested in the answers that came through, the guidance that came through, just simply as information for your journey. And I sat down and I transcribed it. And that's the next video I'm going to do with you. And I want to do a little bit more work on helping you to get answers from your higher, wiser self. Okay. And because your higher, wiser self knows everything that there is to know about you, right? Higher self and God universe. Also, some people have been saying to me, Esther, you've got this curtain behind you. You always show us the view of where you are. I actually have the most gorgeous view behind that curtain. If I get all day sun. So if I open that curtain right now, it's just sun pouring in and it's not the right conditions to make a video. So I have to keep the curtains closed. If I did this video out on my balcony, which I tried to do because I'm right in the hub of everything, I'm like steps from the promenade and the sea, it's just too noisy, right? I wanted to do that for you. But right now I am in Budva, Montenegro. I'll be here for a couple more weeks, well, a few more weeks. And if you are interested in seeing the pictures, you're thirsty for travel, you just want to see different parts of the world. I know so many people, I started coming to Montenegro 2 years ago, and most people are like, where's Montenegro? I've never even heard of it. There's a country called Montenegro. So I love how it's just people are discovering something new. Anyhow, if you want to see pictures of where I'm landing, join me on Instagram. It's just at Esther Bartkiw. I do the energy updates are in the stories. I do a lot of inspirational things in the stories. I post a lot of pictures of where I am. And I want to kind of revamp my Instagram and have a little bit of new focus. So your input will be appreciated very soon. So otherwise, have a great day. I've got clients this afternoon doing sessions, but I am going to go out and have a walk because we've got a beautiful, gorgeous sunny day. I'm going to go down by the promenade. I'm going to get a little bit of a dopamine hit on so many levels. And then I'm going to come home and settle down and work with clients for the rest of the day. Whatever you are doing, have a beautiful, amazing day. And let me know what you think about this topic about dopamine in the comments section below. I'll also put all my information there. All right, everybody. Ciao for now.